Nobody understands the secrets of body language like the mime artist. The hat we wear tells much about us, but so too does the shape in which we hold our bodies. It says, "I am," just as loudly as a uniform or a name tag. But that rigid shape may also be unnatural. From parade ground to promenade, from adjutant to debutante, each walk of life makes its own powerful but unspoken proclamation. But while the mime artist slips easily from one body to another, most of us are trapped within the shape we've acquired, a shape that could lead to ill health. The agile poise, the lithe grace we have as children gradually disappear as life's internal and external pressures mold and shape us into our clumsy adult form. From birth, apparently, it's a downhill course. By the age of 8 or 9, the process is well advanced, and the expert can already identify children under stress simply by the way they use their bodies. The child's defensive posture against a hostile world may become frozen, arched back, hunched shoulders. Such contorted reactions to life may be so severe that the seeds of future ill health are already sown. Posture can influence our blood pressure, our breathing, and even our efficiency of movement. After a lifetime stooping over his patients, this elderly dentist shows how our posture can be affected by the kind of work we do. When young, we tend to ignore the signs. It's in old age that we really begin to pay the price for our misshapen youth. Many diseases and common ailments can be caused or exacerbated by bad posture. The penalty to the individual is great, but so too is the cost to the community. In Britain alone, over 500,000 people will be off work every week because of back pain. The annual bill is over £100 million when losses in productivity are added to the demands on the health service.
These are the plain x-rays you've had taken of your back, and if we look from the side...
The precise cause of the pain is often difficult to diagnose, and a variety of remedies are tried in the hope of giving the patient at least temporary relief. The vertebral column can be stretched by means of traction, while manipulation may help to uncurl a twisted spine. Most of our modern therapies for back pain ignore the probability that posture is the likely cause. And having ignored it, we do little to improve posture. Yet, almost a century ago, a technique was evolved that did just that. It was discovered by this man, F. Matthias Alexander. Alexander was neither a scientist nor a doctor, but an actor. He was born in 1864 in Australia, but spent most of his life in London, where he died at the age of 87.
A dull and muddy-mettled rascal, peak, like John O'Dreams, unpregnant of my cause, and can do nothing.
In his early 20s, Alexander gained a fine reputation as an actor and reciter, specializing in one-man shows. Alexander's career was dogged, however, by one persistent problem.
I am pigeon-livered and lack gall to make oppression bitter, or ere this, I should have fatted the regent kites with this...
His voice kept failing in the middle of his performances.
Lordy villain, remorseless, lecherous, traitorous, kindless villain, oh, vengeance!
Faced with the prospect of losing his career, Alexander was determined to get to the root of his curious problem. Why should his voice fail only when he was in front of an audience? Using a system of mirrors, Alexander observed himself minutely as he went through the motions of giving a recital. He noticed that on each occasion, 3 things went wrong.
Yet I, a dull and muddy...
When starting, he threw his head back. He depressed his voice box and breathed in air with a sudden gasp. Alexander spent the next 7 years developing a technique to help himself and eventually other people improve the way they use their bodies. His deeply personal discovery led to a new understanding of posture and its consequent effect. He became something of a cult figure. Artists of every hue were anxiously seeking his help. Ian Currer is one of many professional musicians today whose careers have been threatened by the kind of tension that afflicted Alexander. His Alexander teacher is Eric de Paya, an original student of Alexander himself. Through minute adjustments of the limbs in the most commonplace of actions, standing, sitting, twisting, leaning, he tries to re-educate Ian's body. Eliminating physical tension may well eliminate the artistic stress Ian suffers.
But if any fellow musician has, or actor, or anybody who has this tension problem, I would recommend Alexander technique before beta blockers and Valium and alcohol and all the rest of it.
Recent years have seen a resurgence of interest in the Alexander technique. In the United Kingdom, some 500 trained Alexander teachers deal with a multitude of problems. Anthony is a sculptor. He suffers from persistent back pain, but he also experiences migraine, depression, and insomnia. So far, doctors have been unable to isolate his problem. So eventually he decided to approach an Alexander teacher.
Now, I want you to think the words neck free, neck lengthen. And by neck free, I mean keep the head in that rotary movement quite free.
Dr. Wilfred Barlow also studied under Alexander. He eventually became a consultant rheumatologist, specializing in diseases of the bones and joints.
We want the neck, column of the neck, like a hollow cylinder, to come out of the chest.
He's been ideally placed to see that prevention by readjusting the posture is infinitely preferable to the mere treatment of painful symptoms.
And out. So the first obvious twist in your body is a displacement of your chest over to the left. So the chest cage is throwing over to the left and it's rotating like that. This has the effect that if one drops a perpendicular from that shoulder downward, it goes through the buttock. If you drop one from this shoulder, it misses the other one by several inches. And if I take your head there and begin to straighten it there.
Initially, at least, good posture feels rather strange. We become accustomed to our odd shape, and without guidance, we cannot hope to alter it.
The upper body is rotating backward on the right, but the left leg is straightened back compared with this one. So the pelvis is rotating back on the left, but the chest is rotating back on the right. And this means that the mid-back, where you have most of your pain, is being put into a vice like that. It's being twisted.
This careful analysis of Anthony's posture has revealed the muscle tension that is at the root of his back pain and other problems. For years, he's been holding his body in a most unbalanced way.
Against the grid, we saw this twist in your chest, and lying there, the left side of your body is too straight. The right side of your body has got a curve, like a banana. It's got a curve in like that. And this means that your chest is overexpanded relative to the right side of the chest. Now, I'm going to get under your back, and I want you to think the words back lengthen, back widen. Now, I've got hold of your chest, and I want you to let your back lengthen and widen. Your shoulders now have become very fixed. So I'm going to get you to direct attention to your shoulders. And if we're ever to get the shoulder undone, we've got to get the upper arm to rotate inward. Most people will gain up to 1.5, 2 inches during Alexander lessons. and they'll broaden out. You will see actual physical alterations in their height and weight. Most people say that my husband's much more relaxed and is a much nicer man to live with, that sort of thing.
Anthony soon felt a benefit. His daily work in a small foundry became less physically taxing, perhaps because of the subtle retraining of his movement. Normal daily actions like lifting or walking, sitting and standing had to be learned anew. But his back pain began to abate quite spontaneously, and the headaches and sleepless nights became less frequent. Through Alexander training, the body can rediscover the natural coordination of childhood. This is Anthony some 3 weeks and 8 Alexander lessons later.
The main change which has taken place after 3 weeks' lessons is a releasing of his shoulders. He's still a little held in the left shoulder, but the most obvious change is the straightening of his chest on his lower back. It lies almost symmetrically balanced now. The main changes show sideways on, where the line of his neck has altered a lot. If I just turn his head a bit to this side, you'll see now a very nice line of his neck. His neck is freer and his head is going forward and upward out of his shoulders. In his lower back, the lower back has come back quite a lot instead of the hollow he had, and a line from the back of his ear now falls through his hip and through his ankle, so that his whole body balance has come back. This means that he's not bracing either of his knees back quite so much, and he looks very nicely poised there.